I'm not going to forget to do the intro this time. Okay. This is Leafy, and this is Chapter 1 of ReZero, Unusable Ridge 10. This is really bad. Lost and penniless. Those words were all he could think of. Well, penniless wasn't quite right. He did have his wallet in his pocket, and setting aside the fact that he had an abundance of small change and very few notes, it couldn't be denied that he had his assets on him. More than enough to go to the nearest mall to do some shopping and eat some lunch. Even so, he could also be called penniless. Looks like the currency around here is completely different after all. Flipping the rare Ridge 10 yen coin he is holding, the youth sighed deeply. He was an unremarkable youth, bearing short black hair and average structure. He had some muscularity, which, combined with his cheap jersey, gave off the air of athlete. His sharp eyes were his only noteworthy feature, and now even they drooped helplessly. The banality of his appearance was such that one could instantly lose him in a crowd. However, the gazes were directly at him. Those were of wonder and incomprehension, as though they were looking at him strange. Obviously, there wasn't a single person sporting black hair or jersey among those looking at him. Their hair was extensively blonde, white, brown, green, blue, and so on. Furthermore, their outfits were armor, dancers' clothes, monotype robes, and which posed a certain vibe. The youth could only cross his arms in comprehension as their brazen gazes washed over him. So basically, it's like that, huh? Snapping his fingers, he pointed at those who stared at him. Seems I've been summoned to another world! Before his eyes was a carriage drawn by a massive lizard being. Natsuki Subaru was born in the Heian era's Japan pressure-free education system. He had lived 17 years, and to describe his life would take 17 years itself. Setting aside his present situation could be simply described as high school third-year shut-in, or in more detailed terms, a piece of trash who disregards everything, even his parents, to shut himself in his shell with his entrance exams right around the corner. There was no particular reason for his solitude. On typical weekends, he would occasionally think getting up now would be a pain, and that became an impetus to cut school. With his absences steadily increasing, before he realized he'd become an exemplary shut-in who brought tears to his parents. He spent his days in sloth, plunging ever deeper into the net with minimal communication. The result being a summons to another world, huh? I don't really get it myself. Reconfirming his surroundings yet again, he heaved his unteeped sigh. He had moved from the street he was on and was presently sitting in a somewhat dim alley. The ground was paved, a rough job compared to modern Japan, but it wasn't bad. Supposing this is another parallel world fantasy, I guess this must be a standard medieval civilization. I didn't see any machinery, and they build with stone and wood. He thought back to the sights he'd seen on his way to the alley and organized the information in his head. He would frequently let his imagination run wild. As a result, he was more than prepared for his present situation. First, calmly analyze that time period's culture and its difference with Japan. ascertain any differences in the laws of physics and possibility of contained with human organisms. These were the priorities. All right, let's do this. I'm not imagining you guys, and I'm fairly certain about the level of civilization. It seems like my money won't be of any use, but I took the opportunity to speak to a shopkeeper, and we had no problem communicating. Upon realizing he'd been summoned, the first thing Subaru did was to attempt to negotiate with the grocer, having attempt to purchase the apples with his Japanese yen. He was promptly denied. It seemed that the world used different gold, silver, and copper as its currency. The inherent value of currency in this world was easy to understand, certain benefiting to a parallel world fantasy. Well, I suppose there would be a mixed metal fakes. Something like a 500 won coin would be probably degraded, though. Probably heavy to carry around, he thought, as another lizard carried past through the streets. This produced a giant cloud of dust, and yet the townsfolk paid it no mind, as though they were completely used to this. Even so, they don't seem nearly as common as cars, where, come to think of it, I haven't seen any dogs or cats around here. The lizards drawing the carriages appeared considerably larger than horses. Their body mass seemed constant relative to the proportions, but it's certainly worrying to see reptiles of that size. They're commonplace, huh? Both lizards and humanoids. Then the final piece he had to confirm the unique looks of this world's humans. They possess very colorful hair, but one could easily obtain any hair color with hair dye. For a parallel fantasy world, that was nothing extraordinary. Instead, Subaru focused on their animal ears. At curious glance, he spotted dog ears, cat ears, perhaps even bunny ears, and he may have been caught sight of a lizard man-like being. There were also those who looked no different from Subaru, which led him to conclude. The genre is a parallel world fantasy. The culture is that of your typical medieval civilization. Demi-human are common, so battle and adventure might be common as well. The animals show some minor changes, but they were basically served their functions. Is that how it is? Having deducted that, Subaru exhaled a long breath that was quite a sigh. Having spoken of the circumstances he'd ended up in, he knit his brows. At this seemingly convenient development, if these proceeded according to his fantasies, he'd freely use his modern knowledge to obtain incredible power. However, this world was slightly different from what he'd planned for. I had run perfect simulations of Sengoku era if I'd end up there. If I have seized the country from Nobunaga. Whoa, where was I? When it came to a parallel world fantasy, at best his knowledge accounted to gunpowder production, and even that was meaningless considering the world's technology level. Parallel world fantasy generally came with magic. If that were the case, it would probably make gunpowder little more than fireworks. Well, there's also glitches where magic isn't the end of all. If I ever get the opportunity to contribute to an advancement to science, I'll do my best. First, my current problem. He had no clue how or why he'd been summoned here. He clearly remembered what he was doing prior to being summoned. He had just gone out for the first time in a long while to buy some cup ramen at the convenience store, and was about to return home. He didn't want to use his bicycle, so he went on foot. Midway, he looked up at the night sky and thought, "It's almost full moon tonight, huh?" And then he looked down and blinked. It was noon. Night to noon is in an instant. He immediately realized something's off, but that was it. He calmed down now, but immediately after the summoning, his panic was such that it could be told for generations to come. Considering I, being an only son, have gone missing, those generations might not exist. As he muttered this, he once again checked his belongings. In a parallel world fantasy, starting gear was even more important than he'd imagined. He'd need everything he had, however little. First, his cell phone with a dying battery, his wallet containing many video rental memberships cards, the ramen he bought from the convenience store, shoyu chonsuku, some snacks, corn pottage flavor, his beloved gray jersey, unwashed, worn out sneakers of 2 years, and more. That's that, huh? Why didn't I at least carry a pistol? What do I do now? It seemed only his snacks would prove useful, and only to fill his belly. The situation is hopeless, and of course, I don't know the source. I don't even have any memories of passing through a mirror, hoping in a pond. More importantly, where's the beauty who summoned me? The heroine, absent by 2D standards, was an act of incognizable negligence to summon him and just leave him like that. It is as though he was simply thrown away. In truth, Subaru could no longer escape reality. Now that he'd accepted his situation, and he could only hang his head in despair. Oh, give me a break already! What on earth am I supposed to do here? Subaru was already at his limits as he muttered complaints. He earnestly wanted to go back. Fantasy was being left in the realm of fantasy. It was fun to imagine arriving in another world to obtain the incredible power, but he actually ended up in such situation. What could he really do? For now, what's important is survival, but well, my level 1 community ability will be strong enough. Aside from his family, he only really spoke to store clerks. He lived in a lifestyle for almost a year now and had long forgotten how to navigate social interactions. Even though I can type and speaking speed in line chats, Subaru moved his finger nervously as he contemplated his future in despair. However, his expression changed when he heard the sound of footsteps echoing through the alley. He looked up to see 3 men blocking the exit. Okay, that was Chapter 1, Unusable Ridge 10.